iPhone. Oh my God.
It's happening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the University of the Underground Musical Incubator Program. Whoop, whoop. You're all meant to scream with joy now. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So I know you've had a busy couple of months, right? But today we have one of the cherries on top of that delicious Bakewell tart. We have, I don't know if Bakewell tarts have cherries, but in my little world they do. So yeah, we have the really incredible Rachel Bungey with us, and she is a wizard in terms of her artistry and creativity. She's worked with an abundance of incredible artists, helping them with audiovisual stuff, presenting their sonic to the world in a really potent, powerful way visually. And I think, you know, we're thinking a lot about like decolonization and the kind of blurring of different disciplines, right? And I can't think of anyone who can help us to examine and explore the power of the visual in music production, right? What relationship does the visual have in kind of furthering the artistic and ideological aims of different musical cultures and subcultures globally? I think Rachel is here to explain all of these incredible things for us and to us. So without further ado, Rachel, please show yourself.
Hi. What an introduction. Thank you so much. I have a presentation for you, but I'm not actually able to share my screen. So if someone could help me out with the admin of that, that would be great.
So Aditi, can you do that?
I think you might need to do that, Nelly, because you're the host.
No, because I made you the host.
Oh, okay. 1 second. I don't think I can do it, Nelly.
You have to go in the button maybe down below and say like hello participant, or make me the co-host again.
Okay, I'll make you I know what I need to do. I need to make Rachel co-host, right?
Yeah, you can do that as well.
Cool. There you go, Rachel. You should be able to do it now, my love.
Yes. Okay. Is this working? Sorry, 1 sec. I can't for some reason.
I mean, there's something nice about being so close to your face as well.
There
is a very, intimate build-up.
Yeah, I mean, it might have to be my face at this rate.
Is there anything we can do to help, Rachel?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting me.
Maybe like leave and come back.
Let's try one more time.
Or what I can do. So I've made for you.
I am the host now. I'm loving how this is kind of like panning out, everyone. It's like the singing chairs, you know. Tung, tung, tung. So I'm guessing that what's happening is Rachel is going to come up and come back again. Apologies for technical issues.
Yeah, I think
I do struggle with the internet on the seaside at the moment.
no, I'm not at the seaside. No, I think I'm just a bit of a technophobe, so hey, but Rachel's back.
Okay,
back,
Rachel is
sorry.
back.
Can
So
I be the
let's
host
make
again?
co-host. My co-host. Here you
Yeah,
go.
Yes, there we
Okay,
go.
Hey,
There we
this
go.
is
Can you see?
amazing.
Sorry about that, guys.
no problem. So this is Rachel Bungey, everyone.
Hello, hi team. I'm really excited to hear more about what you guys are up to and hear about your projects. But for now, I will talk through a little bit of the things that I know and have learned through working in the music industry and working with lots of incredible musicians. So we're going to think about the visual world building around music with a focus on album sleeves. Like all meaningful design, album art is so much more than just packaging. It's a crucial piece of how a band, an album, and a genre are perceived, and a major contributing factor to the culture of music. This is me. I'm Rachel. I am an artist / designer. I'm currently my career so far has been in music since I left university for the last like 8 years maybe. And I'm also studying art I'm studying sculpture at the RCA at the moment. And this photo was taken on the University of the Underground program that I did last year. I did the I Want to Believe program, which was great. But also quite intense. So I hope you guys are doing okay, because I know how much hard work it can be. And yeah, I hope you're learning loads and feeling inspired. I thought I would talk about how I first got into record sleeves. As a kid, I was always really into art, and I was very much probably doing the wrong thing and judging books by their covers, in that I always loved picking up record sleeves for their art first. And this particular album, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, really caught my attention as a kid, and I fell in love with the work of Storm Thorgerson, who worked in a partnership with Audrey Powell. And my best friend's dad was actually the doctor of Storm Thorgerson when he was alive, and they had lots of prints of his work around the house that he'd gifted to him. So I got to look at lots of his kind of work around this really surreal, crazy photographs that he would create, which I thought was so amazing, because he was a big believer in doing everything in camera. So there was a lot of this is pre doing things in Photoshop and post. A lot of it was just done in camera, which is very inspiring. So yeah, I think Storm Thorgerson was the kind of my first love for album covers. So yeah, I thought we'd go through a brief history of album covers. Album covers are like any other vehicle, and they're a means of illustrating a story. So from the very first records sold in 1910 through to 1938, you would receive them in simple brown envelope-like sleeve bearing the name of the record company. So they were nothing fancy, and they were sold in electrical stores, and you very much had to know exactly what record you were looking for, and ask the salesperson for it. It wasn't something you could just browse in a record shop. The initial leap came in the 1920s, when album sleeves were bound into large book-like albums based on the concept of photo albums. In 1938, Columbia Records hired Alex Steinweiss, who was the first director of art, and he was credited for the conception of the album cover as we know today. And by the end of the 1940s, many major labels followed suit with paper covers and original designs, and the term album was eventually used to describe the 12-inch LP, and by the 1950s became the standard format for albums. So I thought we'd have a quick look through the ages of what album covers look like and some of my favorites. So it started, I guess the big boom started in the 1950s. Lots of rock and roll covers and lots of Elvis Presley, lots of white men from my research. But we also had the amazing Miles Davis coming through. And then it got exciting in the 60s with kind of the psychedelic movement, Jimi Hendrix and Cream, the Beatles, Andy Warhol's cover for Velvet Underground, the Rolling Stones. I love this cover from Wilson Pickett, the Beatles' Abbey Road. 1970s, it got even more exciting with maybe my favorite record cover ever, Miles Davis' Bitches Brew. And then, yeah, lots of classic covers, Sex Pistols, The Clash, Kraftwerk, Fleetwood Mac, David Bowie, Joy Division. The 80s, we had Prince, Grace Jones, the amazing Grace Jones, Bruce Springsteen, NWA, Cyndi Lauper, Iron Maiden, New Order. Particular favorites of mine were the Imagination covers. I just love how magical and camp they are. Then we had the 1990s, Nirvana, Tribe Called Quest, Lauryn Hill. The Roots started some quite political and activist covers, which I thought were really amazing. Radiohead. Then we move into 2000s and we have great covers like The Streets and Amy Winehouse, Gorillaz, Chance the Rapper, King Krule, Raise Blood, Lil Sims, Grimes, Dave. So yeah, I mean, great album covers are forever. They're not just great in the 1970s and 80s. There's still so many amazing album covers being made. And people have been pressing with things into albums for a long time. So you can pretty much press anything you like into a vinyl. So showing some examples, there's some people put samples of their hair and urine in their vinyl. Some people have done holograms. Some people have done blood. You can scent them. You can have any color you want as well. So some people didn't. Their Ghostbusters album had marshmallow scents. People have done honey, X-rays, rose petals, android dust. I particularly like that one. And I'm hoping I can share some videos with you as well. Can I do that? We might have to go back to the videos because I'm not sure I can do it on this screen. Yeah, screw it, we'll come back. This is a nice quote from Bruce Springsteen. I do a lot of curiosity buying. I buy it if I like the album cover. I buy it if I like the name of the band, anything that sparks my imagination. I still like to go to the record stores. I like to just wander around and I'll buy whatever catches my attention. I think this idea of catching attention is really important, but there is definitely no formula and there is definitely no rules, because I started to collect some images of what my favorite records are, and there is definitely no continuity in terms of what my favorite records are. I think it's impossible to enlist to list all the incredible artists and albums out there. So I've just done a snapshot of some of my favorites. Grace Jones, as I mentioned before. I think the way that Grace Jones has used her image throughout her covers is incredible. Tame Impala Currents, they very rarely appear on any of their covers, and they have created an amazing visual language throughout their records. Frank Ocean Blonde, I love this photo by Wolfgang Tillmans, apparently taken after a big night in Berghain, I've heard. King Crimson, In the Court of Crimson King. I grew up with this record sleeve on my wall, and it's sort of forever haunted me, but I really love it. Bjork, Homogenic. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. You should check out the painter who created this artwork, because there's a lot of really amazing paintings. Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells. Prince, Purple Rain. David Bowie, Aladdin Sane. Beyonce, Renaissance. Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly, of course, and all of Kendrick's visuals. FK Twigs, LP1. Lil Nas, Montero. But yeah, of course, the record sleeve is just one output for a visual artist, for a musician, and there's so many kind of visual art routes to go down. It was interesting coming to work for a record label when vinyl sales had become huge again, and actually, yeah, there was a huge rise in record sales post the decline in 80s and 90s when people were just buying CDs or downloading. But I guess there's so much to think about as an artist now with social media. There's TikTok, there's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Are you on Reddit? Are you on Spotify, Apple Music? You have to think about your fan base. Are they listening to tapes, CDs, vinyls? Do you have a mainly online fan base? Are you going to create a unique website? But I think most of all, out of all of these things, it's what's most important is what works for you and what's sustainable for you. How can you best amplify your voice? There's no point doing something that you don't want to do. So I think, yeah, finding where you feel your voice feels the most comfortable is super important. So I thought we'd look at some fun things that artists have done for in their music campaigns to try and raise attention. This is a interesting one. Michael Jackson in 1995 floated a humongous sculpture of himself down the River Thames, and apparently cost him 30 million to do. Quite wild. We have Wu-Tang Clan that released a double concept album. There was only one copy and it toured in art galleries. And in order to listen to the record, fans had to catch it at its nearest stop on the tour. Once the tour ended, it sold for approximately 5 million, making it the most expensive piece of music ever sold. In 2017, for the album Witnessed by Katy Perry, they changed disco balls near global landmarks, and fans could hear the record via headphones that sat behind the disco ball. Beyonce's self-titled visual album in 2014, Beyonce made the most surprising moves in music marketing with no marketing campaign. The album simply appeared with download services and no fanfare, which I guess you can do if you're Beyonce. Sex Pistols released the infamous single God Save the Queen during the Queen's Jubilee in 1977, and they celebrated by playing a very loud gig on the Thames. When I worked for XL Recordings, we did, this is one of my favorite marketing campaigns that I worked on, where we just put Powell, the artist's email address, on a giant billboard and encouraged fans to have conversations with him, which created a really interesting dialogue. Little Nas X recently, with his recent album, gave birth to his album, which I kind of loved, about a week before he had a baby shower, which was great, and then quite visually gave birth to it. And I guess one thing to highlight, even though I'm not going to go into music videos too much, is kind of how there's no rules around the format of videos anymore in terms of creating one style of traditional music video. Jay-Z's 444 was one of the first campaigns that I really loved, that had a really varied video styles. So he had a more traditional 4-minute video that was animated. He had a long format 8-minute video that was a short film, and then he had a black and white, sort of more abstract 1-minute 56 video, just showing that, you know, there was no rules in terms of the format of music videos and the length of them. And since this campaign, I've seen lots of artists explore this, especially with social media, and how, you know, you can make a 1-minute video on Instagram and that could be your music video. And perhaps that's even, especially if you don't have big budgets, it can be a great way of creating content instead of feeling like you've got to put 4 minutes of video to a track. And of course, lots of artists have explored long and short formats. Kanye's films are a great example of that, as well as Beyonce's visual album for Lemonade. And yeah, I thought we would have a look at a case study, and I thought we'd focus on Aphex Twin. Aphex Twin is a really interesting artist in terms of visual aesthetic, in that he was an electronic musician who traditionally electronic musicians and electronic music as a genre isn't really about the artist. It hasn't got lyrical content, so yeah, it's not a format that's usually it's usually quite a low-key visual output, and Aphex Twin's visuals are very much not low-key. His kind of first gigs, he used to bring out female bodybuilders and have them perform on stage. He has created maybe one of the most iconic logos in music, that's kind of instantly recognizable and is used throughout his campaigns. In his most not most recent, but in Collapse, the album, he just used the logo, and it appeared all over the world before any music was released. So fans were going kind of crazy and spotting it all over the world, which is amazing to have that kind of power, I think. And yeah, eventually it appeared on the album cover. But another quite innovative thing he did was put his face on the album, which again, as I said, electronic music didn't really do. And he kind of used this kind of creepy portrait of himself, and really played with it and created masks. I'm sure you've seen the video for Window Liquor. If you haven't, check it out. But yeah, again, his face is creepily used on lots of different characters, and he created masks with them, which the visual artist Weird then brought into the visuals a lot, and he played with this kind of creepy distorting of the face while he was performing, which then kind of fed into using people in the crowd. They were using facial recognition technology to bring the crowd into the gigs, which was at the time, like, no one had really done that, and facial recognition technology definitely wasn't really being used. He would also play with, putting his face on, so filming the crowd and having the crowd as the visuals and then bringing his face onto that. There's rumors that he used to also hire lookalikes of himself and hide within the crowd and sort of just creep people out whilst he was performing. And these shows became pretty famous, and people were really following the visuals of these live shows as they appeared on screen, and reportedly people would be cheering along to the visuals rather than the music. So yeah, I think he's a really interesting artist who's always been really pushing the visual world along with his music. He even had a self-portrait of himself within his music. I'm going to send some links afterwards of the videos I've put in here because I can't show you. And then I'll tell you briefly about my career and how I've what my mark has been within the music world. So I started my career at Excel Recordings. When I finished university, I studied graphic design, but I didn't want to go work for a traditional graphic design agency. So yeah, I ended up at Excel. Excel is part of Beggars Group. It's an independent label, but Beggars Group is independent. It's not a major label, and they have the record labels 4AD, Matador, Rough Trade, Excel, and Young, which formerly was Young Turks, if you don't know what Young is. These are some of the artists that I work for, the campaigns that I worked for when I was at Excel. So Lapsley, Ibeyi, Tom York, Radiohead, Jungle, King Krule, Sam Gallatry, New Gen, Adele, Over Mono, Liss, Special Request, The Avalanches, and Corrupt FM. I also worked across some of Young's artists, so the XX, FK Twigs, Jamie XX, Sampha, and Kamasi Washington. For the first 6 months of my career, so I worked very closely with my old boss, Phil Lee, who is the creative director at Excel, and the first 6 months, maybe a year of my career, I spent putting Adele's face on lots of different marketing. It was quite a simple marketing campaign, basically her face everywhere. And I also got the chance to create a fun kind of visual teaser which went on TV, which introduced the track Hello. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was a nice introduction to the album. Phil Lee leaded this campaign, but I helped out with the marketing of it. This is for Jamie XX, and that for the album In Color. So as you can see, it visually related a lot to the title, and it was really fun to work on because it basically meant just putting lots of rainbows all around. And they created a fun pop-up shop with lots of Jamie XX items and fun things. I really enjoyed working on the Kate Trinada album with Ricardo Cavallo, who did the drawing of the cover on the left, and he basically gave me lots of drawings to play with, and then I got to design how they would live throughout the record, and kind of how we would use them for marketing. So we created a game to go with the record and animated lots of these drawings for his live shows to really help build that visual world. This is maybe one of my favorite campaigns I worked on, and it was the record cover for Nines Crop Circle. So as you can see, I took quite a just obvious route and created a crop circle, which was really fun to do. We basically flew up to the north of Scotland and found the last cropped field that hadn't been cut for the year, and we commissioned a crop circle artist to create the logo and in the crop, and created a video that kind of teased that, and then these big crop circles appeared throughout London, which is really fun to work on. This is a sleeve I did for Arca. Arca's an amazing artist to work for, and she had this idea about fishnet sleeves, so I spent a week making these, going down to Primark and sewing together fishnet album sleeves. So yeah, it was for a limited run of I think around 500 records. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in as an example of how you can do really fun homemade stuff, and I think it can be really impactful. This is a sleeve. These are a series for Over Mono, for their first EPs that came out on XL, and they were really unsure of what they wanted to do for their visuals, and yeah, we're kind of stuck on it. So I decided to arrange a trip to go to the place where they grew up and where lots of their initial influence had come from, which was the bridge going over the River Mono, which is why they're called Over Mono, and they used to sit here and smoke spliffs and read Minx Mag. So we went and took these photos of them hanging out on the bridge. So yeah, maybe one of probably the least known things I've worked on, but maybe my favorite. I also got the pleasure of shooting them for a Mix Mag shoot in their studio with a llama, which was good fun. I commissioned this photo for Jay Paul's recent singles that he put out, by Tim Sisenti. And yeah, as you can see, they're pretty, he was going for quite like a sci-fi feeling with the shoot, and that he also created an amazing website to go along with the music that he put out. And I created a sort of sci-fi font that kind of flickered in like Matrix style when you go on the website. I did the cover for Corrupt FM, The Loft's tape, which was inspired by the Streets cover with the lighter. It's quite a direct reference, but yeah, that was, yeah, good fun to work on. So after 5 years of working at XL and stamping a lot of records and painting lots of boards and making packaging and merch and all sorts, I decided to go freelance, and I moved to Japan because I wanted to have an adventure. And I carried on working within the music industry and sort of opened myself up to working with major labels, and worked with lots of different artists. Here you can see a campaign I did with Getz and Puma. I worked with Hak Baker and Dene Moore and Jovial and Aquilo, and this is some work that I did for Neo. Neo wanted to create a book along with her record, with just some poetry and some thoughts around the record. So we made this sort of abstract photo book with some of her writing, which was so lovely to put together, and helped out with some of the merch that went along with the record. I worked with the band Bloxx and some of their singles and album covers, and I guess this is an example of where working with major labels is funny, because you create a record, you create an album cover, and then they just stick it on everything. And it felt maybe a bit less considered than working with independents, in that, yeah, there's quite a format that major labels seem to go for when it's with merch, and it tends to be just stick the album cover on everything. But yeah, nice to see it in lots of different formats. And we also created a lyric video, and then this is some work for an artist called Dandelion, and the two images on the left are single covers, and then it's an EP cover that I created. This is really fun because it was in lockdown, and I basically did all of it in my bedroom, and yeah, shot his face on in my friend's house, and then yeah, had it was all done pretty ad hoc, so it's good fun to work on. This is my work for Hak Baker, who I was so dreamy to work with, maybe one of the nicest musicians I've worked with. And we did these sort of big billboards all over London, drawn billboards, and this translated into lots of merch that he made. So yeah, after some tough times working through the pandemic, I was also starting to try and save up to go do a master's at the Royal College of Art. So I decided to take a proper job again, and went and worked for Untold. And here I worked with the creative director from Excel, Phil Lee, and I worked with him on Lola Young. And then I also did creative direction for Teo Sound. We worked together on Kojey Radical's recent album and singles, commissioning the amazing photographer Waka, and yeah, it was a pleasure to work with her on this. And we created some fun billboards with him. Also worked together on the Placebo campaign, and I recently did John Newman's singles, and my most current project is with the band Franc Moody. They kind of had this idea at the beginning of their album to this whole idea around the ether and being lost in the desert, and kind of this need for like expansive space. And they were really inspired by the film Paris, Texas. And so I created a single campaign around that, which led into an album. And we had sort of these fun, colourful, illustrative marketing all over London, which also translated into their tour posters and merchandise. And yeah, this kind of idea of expansive space and being lost translated into all of their videos as well. And yeah, I think they created a really amazing cohesive world around their album. And it also translates into their live visuals. This is the backdrop I drew for them, and their press photos. So yeah, I'm going to end in a minute, but I thought I would just go through some of the questions I ask musicians and when I'm working with them, to kind of start the process. So asking questions like, what inspired the record? What is the album about? What feeling are you trying to create with the record? Do any visuals come to mind that link with the record? Sometimes artists have a really clear idea and some don't, and sometimes it's about delving for that. What's the feeling of the world you're trying to build? what's the lyrical content, and does that relate to the visual world that it lives in? It's quite funny sometimes working with musicians, they feel like their lyrics are quite separate to their visuals. So yeah, it's always worth asking that. And then how do we tell the story of this album in a unique way? So yeah, I'm going to end there. And I thought so that we have some time for questions, and so that I'm not just talking the whole time, because I'd really love to hear from you guys. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was so informative and expansive. I think so very often we just kind of inhale and consume images without actually kind of processing what it is that we're consuming, and also the stories behind the images that we're consuming as well, right? Like, what is the process that kind of results in an artist creating this audiovisual landscape, right? And, you know, from my kind of conversations with certain artists, I think there's a struggle, right, to actually kind of create that audiovisual landscape, to create something that is symbolic and representative of the music itself, right? And I think, you know, certain artists as well, like they see themselves as musicians purely, right? And so to have a kind of visual element attached to their work seems like a kind of not antithetical to like their sound or sonic, but almost like something that isn't necessarily considered, or the first thing that comes to mind when creating the music in and of itself. So before we kind of ask folks to come and pick your brain, I was just wondering if you could kind of speak to that, like if you could give us an anecdote or speak to, like, you know, the process of negotiation with musicians, the struggle maybe, or the challenges in kind of actualizing those worlds, or in kind of getting musicians to imagine audiovisually.
It's really it's a difficult one to answer, because every musician is different and every process is different, and for example, some people, for some artists I've worked with, the visual is so tied up. For example, working with like artists like Krule, his brother Jack creates all of the visuals. So I think Archie never really had to think about that because he trusted Jack so much. Another good example I think of that is like working with Radiohead. Stanley Donwood just has always created all of the visuals, so again they haven't really had to worry about it. I think obviously there's curation that happens, but there's kind of a visual artist attached throughout the process. And then some artists just seem to know. Like I remember the amazing getting the chance to work with Kamasi Washington's team. Kamasi just like knew and had a vision, and that vision was executed, and as soon as that vision was executed, he knew exactly what the cover was. And there's definitely a lot of great artists who just know, but I think it's really okay not to know, and it's about having lots of conversations to try and spark that. And I think the most important thing of getting to the bottom of is, what feeling are you trying to create? What do you want what's the feeling? It's definitely something I question myself and a lot when I'm creating visual art, is what do I want the audience to feel? Which I'm guessing, I'm not a musician, so I don't know, but I'm guessing that runs through musicians' minds when they're making music, whether it's conscious or not. so yeah, I guess I often, if artists really don't know then and don't have a clear vision on that stuff, then it's about like what music videos you like, or what album covers have you seen that you like, or what films have you seen recently that you like, and then maybe we can start unpicking from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Rachel. Yeah, University of the Underground Incubator Crew. What are your questions?
Nobody's gonna ask Rachel to do the album. Here we go. Hello.
Yeah, I have a question. Like earlier on, you were like basically breaking down album covers and talking about how you could extract a lot of like marketing, merchandise, audiovisual assets from that. And I'm just thinking like for a rollout for an emerging musician, what would you say are the most bare bones essential assets that you would require or you would need or you would look for when working with an artist?
That's a good question. I'd say, so I guess your bare bones are your singles, and if you're doing singles, and which it seems to be that everyone is doing singles at the moment, and yeah, long format there seems to be less of these days, which is weird, but I think yes, obviously your single covers, and if you're doing an album cover is the kind of bare minimum, and then but also press photos are really important. And I think that's hard if you're an artist that doesn't necessarily want to show their face, which I also think is very legit, to not want to have to be the face behind your music. But I think there are lots of really creative ways of doing that if you didn't want to show your face. But yeah, it's some kind of imagery that people can send to press is really important. And then I guess is thinking about how do you kind of share with the world that you're doing something new. So is that going to be, is there a website that you go on that you that has some kind of interesting message, or is there a link to a game, or is there I personally think Instagram is quite important, but I do think that what feels comfortable for the artist is the most important. So yeah, I guess covers would be the most important thing, but I think yeah, it's really hard to say because every campaign's different and every artist is different, and what you can get away with is different as well. Sorry, I don't know if I answered that very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very informative.
Sorry, hi. Sorry, I didn't know whether the mic was working. I wanted to also ask, as in the sense of a digital artist perspective, not just a musician perspective, how do you get, obviously you said you started working with Excel straight away after uni, but I don't know how exactly you managed to do that and have such an amazing career, but I'm just also wondering, as right now I'm in a position, for example, where I haven't had any formal digital artist visual training after GCSE. I just went to theatre school where it was more it was still visual elements, but it wasn't I've done all my digital artist stuff just by myself on my Procreate or Photoshop or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't have formal training in that, but I have a digital artist portfolio, and I'm trying to get jobs making covers for people, making whatever, anything, and I've just got no idea where to send that and how to get opportunities, and apart from Fiverr, which is shit. So
it's tough, and it's unless unless you like meet people in person, sometimes it can be really difficult. So I got lucky with, when I finished university, I did lots of I studied graphic design, and then I did lots of internships, but I was taught at university to not do anything unpaid. And the one internship that I got that was unpaid was, I also couldn't afford to do anything unpaid. But the one unpaid internship at the time, I don't know if they pay now, was XL Recordings. I did like 2 weeks there, and I just said, like, I can't actually continue doing this because it's, yeah, I can't, I need cash basically. So I did like 2 weeks there, but got on really well with them, and then I just carried on interning in lots of different places trying to get a job. And then they were looking for a freelancer to come on permanent for like 6 months, and I said that I couldn't afford to do that, and that they should make a job for me. So then I was just really cheeky basically, and sort of pushed my way in there. But I originally got the gig because I had met the tutor at an exhibition that I did called New Blood, which is like D&AD thing. But I would say, in terms of like freelance stuff, obviously that really like helped kickstart my career. But when I think like finding out who the commissioners are is the most important thing. So the as a creative there, I would do lots of commissioning, and I would spend loads of time trawling Instagram and just like finding people's profiles that I liked. But if you can, yeah, if like, I think Instagram's so good if you're a visual artist, because commissioners are just on there looking at people's Instagrams all the time, but they could easily not find you. So finding out who the commissioners are at record labels is really good. Major labels are, you know, if you get in the good books with commissioner, they can really send you a lot of work. So that would be my advice, is maybe go on LinkedIn, check out commissioners at record labels, because they are often the people who are kind of pairing up musicians with visual artists.
But and they have profiles, like, I just, yeah, who would, like, how would
Yeah,
I find
I'd say, yeah, like like most of them are on Instagram, but like on LinkedIn and stuff, I think as well, like find out who those people are. And also just all record labels, like get into the emails of all record labels as well, and DM, like, I think as well, directly like messaging musicians that you like, and saying like, you know, I really think we'd work great together. I work with lots of musicians who are like, oh, I just got this person on Instagram and like, I want to work with them, you know. So I think, yeah, just sending out your work as much as possible. But yeah, it's tough.
It gets confusing where to send it.
I know.
And like, how to, would you recommend just like making like a little Google Drive PDF portfolio and sending that?
Definitely, especially if you're sending stuff, yeah, when you're sending stuff over email, definitely send a PDF portfolio.
Right, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I guess I can just send them with covers, with like examples of covers and stuff, but also
yeah.
done apart from album covers, haven't you done like so many other kind of shoots and editorials, whatever, like, is this just, because I mean, this is just like if this is the medium you operate in, that you could easily fit that into a specific thing of covers, but there's so much more that you can do as a visual artist, that in a commercial sense, or in a, I don't know.
For sure.
But yeah,
I can put my email in here, and you can so we can speak afterwards if you'd like to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Amazing. Ooh, before we wrap up, does anyone have a final question for Rachel? Might have to hog the question if no one speaks up.
I always hate asking questions. I get shy.
I think like also like what would be the best way to basically make, like, as a last question, what would be the best way to like make something impactful on a low budget? Or like it, yeah, like yeah, I guess as a starting out artist, or like yeah.
It's really hard to answer that question.
That wasn't a really good question.
No,
Sorry.
but like it's true. Loads of that stuff that I showed it is like got big budgets behind it. But also quite a lot of the stuff that I worked on personally didn't have big budgets. And actually record labels can be so shit with spending money on visuals. But I think often that's when you can get most creative, when you've got no budget. So yeah, maybe it's about teaming up with like a photographer who's just starting out, or I think as well like yeah, students, there can be like so much great creativity, because I guess like students are kind of like borrow cameras from university and stuff like that, so and they're like looking to build up their portfolio. But yeah, I guess maybe it's about finding like a low-key photographer or visual artist who's kind of at the beginning of their career, and maybe saying like, look, I don't have loads of budget, but like this is my music, let me know if you're like interested in collaborating. Because again as well, like you never know, like if someone really likes the music or likes the project, they really might be up for doing it with not much budget. I've definitely just like done things for passion projects because I've wanted to. So I think like, and like yeah, some of the recent work I did was really low paid, but I love the project, so you just take it. So I think that can be just reaching out to people and seeing if people are up for collaborating, because it can be a really good opportunity for them as well.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel, for your guidance and for showing us all the power of the audiovisual and the power of the visual more generally as well. Sylvia Winter said that the audiovisual is the most potent tool that we can use for liberation and revolution in the 21st century. So I hope you all remember that, and when you present your incredible music to us on the 15th, I know that a lot of you are cooking up universes of sound and image performance in cross-fertilization with each other. So I hope you can use these words and images and memories and experience that Rachel has gifted us with in this hour to guide you in your process as well. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for your knowledge and your advice. And yeah, of course. And please do come through December the 15th.
Yes, I'd love to. I really want to see how everyone's presentations go.
Amazing. Big love, Rachel, and big love to you all. Keep going. The end is nigh. You're almost there. Have a beautiful evening, rest, and see you soon.
Thank
see
you,
Rachel.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.